Let's get one thing clear. If you're waiting to feel ready, you're going to be stuck forever. Nobody comes and hands you a permission slip to level up. That's on you. Growth doesn't show up like a golden ticket. It shows up as resistance, discomfort, self-doubt, and excuses. And your job is to bulldoze right through that. Growth never feels comfortable. That's the raw truth most people don't want to accept. We love the idea of leveling up, being stronger, smarter, more successful, but the process, the hard, boring, sometimes painful process, that's where 99% of people quit because it's uncomfortable and we've been conditioned to avoid discomfort like it's a red flag. But here's what no one told you growing up. Comfort is not your friend. Comfort keeps you stuck. It keeps you in the same cycle, waking up to the same results, telling yourself someday when you know deep down that day isn't coming, unless you force it. Growth doesn't show up in calm, easy moments. It shows up when your back's against the wall and you decide not to quit. It shows up when you drag yourself out of bed while your body begs you to hit snooze. It shows up in the middle of chaos, not when the stars align. Discomfort is the signal. It's the sign you're on the right track. Think about the last time you tried something new. Maybe it was speaking in front of people, starting a business, pushing past your usual limits at the gym. What was the common thread? You felt awkward, scared, maybe even like a fraud. That's not weakness. That's a growth spurt. That's your mind being stretched beyond what it's used to. That's where the magic happens. But most people interpret that discomfort as a stop sign instead of a green light. And the reason is simple. Our brains are designed for survival, not success. Your mind will always default to what feels safe. It's trying to protect you, but in doing so, it's also protecting your limitations. Your mind will whisper, "You're not ready. What if you fail? Just do it later." And every time you listen, you reinforce the idea that comfort is more valuable than progress. But here's what successful people know. People who've built real momentum in life and business and personal growth, they know that discomfort is the tax you pay to level up. You don't get transformation without friction. You don't become a better version of yourself by staying in the same emotional patterns, doing the same things that got you average results. You have to be willing to feel the pain of growth. Yes, pain. That pain is necessary. It's a sign that your old identity is cracking and something stronger is trying to emerge. That moment when you want to quit the gym because it burns, that's your muscles literally tearing so they can rebuild stronger. That moment when you're terrified of speaking up in a meeting, that's your voice finding its strength. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's progress. Every time you choose discomfort on purpose, you're reprogramming your brain to stop fearing the unknown. You're building proof that you can handle pressure. And the more proof you build, the more unstoppable you become. Comfort is a slow death. It's how people stay stuck in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, habits that destroy them, because the idea of changing feels harder than the pain they're already in. But the truth is, nothing changes until you get uncomfortable enough to do something about it. And if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. This is why people who seem to be on another level aren't necessarily more talented than you. They've just learned to live inside discomfort. They've trained themselves to not run from the burn, but to lean into it. They've realized that the resistance they feel isn't a reason to stop. It's the reason to keep going. When you force yourself to do the hard thing, something powerful happens. Your confidence grows, not because it was easy, but because you proved to yourself that you could do hard things. You start seeing yourself differently. You're no longer the person who avoids the challenge. You're the one who steps into it. That identity shift, that's how you level up. Not from talking about it, not from watching motivational videos, but from doing the thing you don't want to do over and over again. So the next time you feel resistance, when it's easier to stay in bed, to skip the workout, to avoid the tough conversation, remind yourself that comfort won't get you there. It never has, and it never will. Growth lives on the other side of discomfort, with discipline, with the uncomfortable grind that most people avoid. You don't need perfect conditions to grow. You need pressure. You need struggle. You need to stop flinching every time things get hard and start seeing those moments as the greatest opportunity. Because when you stop avoiding discomfort, you start attracting transformation. And that is how you force yourself to level up, one uncomfortable step at a time. Discipline is your freedom. That might sound backwards, but it's one of the most powerful truths you'll ever learn. Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. They think it means ease, comfort, no schedule, no rules. But real freedom, lasting freedom, the kind that creates success, peace of mind, and momentum, only comes when you live with discipline. Without it, you're a slave to your impulses, your emotions, you become trapped in a loop of bad habits, constant procrastination, and the slow drip of regret. Think about your own life. Think about the times you've said, I'll start tomorrow, or I just don't feel like it today. In the moment, that choice feels like freedom. You're avoiding the workout, the project, the hard conversation. You're giving yourself a break. But the next day, you're buried in guilt. You're frustrated with yourself. You feel stuck. Why? Because you didn't take control. You let your feelings steer the wheel, and feelings are the worst drivers of action. Here's the thing. Feelings don't build anything. They don't build businesses. They don't get your body in shape. They don't improve your relationships. Action does. And the bridge between knowing what to do and actually doing it is discipline. You don't need more motivation. That's a trap. Motivation is like a spark. It lights up fast and burns out just as quick. Discipline, though, that's the engine. It's what gets you out of bed when the alarm goes off and every cell in your body says 5 more minutes. It's what pushes you to show up even when no one's watching, even when there's no reward in sight. Because discipline doesn't care how you feel, it only cares about who you want to become. Let's be honest, success is not sexy in the process. It's repetition, it's unglamorous effort, it's boring sometimes. You'll do the same thing over and over again and feel like you're not getting anywhere. And that's where most people quit, right there in the middle of the mundane. But discipline keeps you going. It's the voice that says, keep showing up, this matters. People talk a lot about confidence, about self-belief. But confidence doesn't come from talking to yourself in the mirror. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. You said you'd do it, then you did. That's how trust builds. That's how confidence grows. Discipline trains your brain to believe you are capable. Every time you do the thing you said you'd do, even when it's hard, you rewire your self-image. And that is powerful. Without discipline, your goals are just wishes. You can have vision boards, affirmations, strategies, but none of it works unless you act on it daily. Discipline is doing it anyway. It's writing even when you have writer's block. It's going to the gym when you're tired. It's making the uncomfortable phone call. It's turning off Netflix and turning on your future. And yes, it's hard. Of course it's hard. But you know what else is hard? Regret, stagnation, feeling like you're not living up to your potential. You get to choose your hard. One builds you, the other breaks you. One leads to growth, the other leads to guilt. Discipline makes life harder in the moment, but easier in the long run. It gives you structure. It gives you momentum. It gives you freedom, the kind of freedom that comes from knowing you're in control. When you live with discipline, you're not at the mercy of your emotions. You decide, you move, you build. You're not constantly negotiating with yourself about whether or not you should do something. You've already decided, you've built the habit. That's freedom. Most people think successful people are just motivated all the time. No, they're disciplined. They've trained themselves to act regardless of how they feel. It's a decision, not a mood. It's waking up early to study while your friends sleep in. It's saying no to the party and yes to the project. It's skipping comfort for growth. And over time, discipline becomes your default. You stop making excuses because you've already made a standard. Look, nobody said this was easy, but if you want to level up, if you want to change your life, you have to understand this. Discipline is the only way to freedom, not motivation. Your brain is not built for greatness. It's built for survival. That's why it's always trying to keep you safe, keep you comfortable, and keep you doing the same things you've always done. It doesn't care about your goals, your dreams, or your potential. It cares about what's familiar, what's predictable, what doesn't threaten the status quo. And that's exactly why your brain lies to you. It lies to you when it says you're too tired to go to the gym. It lies to you when it says you're not ready to take that risk. It lies when it tells you now isn't the right time. It's not because you're weak. It's because your brain thinks it's protecting you. But in reality, it's protecting a version of you that you've outgrown. That wiring in your brain, the one that kicks in whenever you try to step outside your comfort zone, was designed thousands of years ago. Back then, staying safe meant survival. Now, it just means staying stuck. Every time you try to level up, your brain will resist. It will create hesitation, distraction, doubt. You'll start negotiating with yourself. Maybe I'll start tomorrow. Maybe I need more time to plan. Maybe I need to feel more motivated. That's the trap. That's the false story your brain is telling to keep you from doing something uncomfortable, something new. Because to your brain, discomfort equals danger. But here's the truth, discomfort equals growth. Every time you lean into that discomfort, you're rewiring your brain. You're telling it, this is the new normal. That's how change sticks. Your brain is like a GPS that hasn't been updated in years. It keeps rerouting you back to what's familiar, even if you're trying to go somewhere better. You have to consciously override it. That's what mental strength is. Doing what's right for your future, even when your brain is screaming at you to stop. It's understanding that fear isn't always a signal to retreat. Sometimes fear is just a sign that you're heading in the right direction. You're moving beyond who you used to be. Think about how many times you've stopped yourself from doing something that could have changed everything. You had the idea, you had the opportunity, but then came the mental chatter. What if I fail? What will people think? Am I even good enough? That chatter isn't the truth. It's the echo of your past trying to hold on. And if you listen to it, you'll talk yourself out of your own potential every single time. The hardest part isn't starting something new. It's silencing the lies your brain tells you before you even begin. The lie that you're not capable. The lie that it's too late. The lie that someone else is more qualified. None of those things are facts. They're mental habits. They're neural pathways that have been carved out by repetition. And the only way to change them is to act in spite of them. Action is the only antidote. You don't overcome the lies in your head by thinking your way out. You overcome them by doing the very thing your brain is trying to avoid. You get up early, even when it says just 10 more minutes. You make the call, even when it says they won't want to hear from you. You show up, even when it says you're not ready. And every time you do that, you prove your brain wrong. You weaken that old wiring. You strengthen the belief that you can do hard things. Most people live in a loop of mental resistance. They stay trapped, not because they don't have talent, not because they lack time, but because they believe their brain's lies. They think fear means stop. They think doubt means they're not ready. But the most successful people in the world, they feel the same fear. They hear the same doubts. The difference is they don't listen. They act anyway. This is how you reclaim control. You start questioning the thoughts that come up when you're about to stretch yourself. You pause and ask, is this thought helping me or holding me back? That question alone can change your life. Because once you realize your brain isn't always right, you stop giving it the final say. You become the one in charge. Growth doesn't come from thinking positive thoughts. It comes from doing the hard things consistently. It comes from pushing through even when your brain is screaming no. That's how confidence is built, through action, not belief. You don't need to believe in yourself before you start. You need to start. And that's what builds belief. That's what rewires the lies. So the next time your brain tells you to slow down, back off, or stay small, don't negotiate. Don't wait for the fear to pass. Move anyway. Take the step. Hit the button. Say yes. Because if you wait until you feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. Your brain will always find a reason to stop you. But you're done listening to lies. You're choosing progress over comfort, and that changes everything. You're not tired. You're unchallenged. Let that sink in for a moment. The fatigue you feel, the constant dragging through the day, the lack of energy or enthusiasm, it's not always physical. It's not always about needing more sleep or taking another day off or drinking another cup of coffee. It's something deeper. It's the fact that you've stopped being challenged. You've stopped stretching yourself. You've stopped setting targets that scare you. And now you're coasting. And coasting drains you faster than anything else. When you're not growing, your energy dies. That's the truth most people won't tell you. You think burnout comes from doing too much, but often it comes from doing too little of what matters. Think back to the times in your life when you felt most alive. Were you doing nothing? Were you in your comfort zone? No, you were probably chasing something, fighting for something, learning something new, proving something to yourself. You were in motion, you were under pressure. And somehow, even though it was hard, you had energy. You were fired up. So what changed? Most people confuse rest with purpose. They think if they slow down, they'll feel better. But what they really need is meaningful effort, something that pulls them forward, something that forces them to rise above who they were yesterday. And when that disappears, the brain starts to atrophy, your mind gets sluggish, your body follows, the fire dies out, not because life is too hard, but because it's too easy. You've stopped climbing, and now you're just existing. And existence without growth is spiritual exhaustion. This happens more often than we realize. You start a new job, you're excited, engaged, curious, but fast forward 6 months or a year, and the same tasks that once gave you a rush now feel like a grind. Not because the job changed, but because you didn't. You stopped learning, you stopped pushing, and now your mind is starving for something new. It's not just about work. This happens in relationships, fitness, creativity, everything. Once the initial challenge fades, once the novelty wears off, the effort becomes routine. But growth doesn't happen in routine. It happens at the edge, where things get uncomfortable, unfamiliar, and uncertain. You don't need a vacation, you need a mission, something that pulls you out of bed in the morning with fire in your belly. And you don't find that mission by sitting still or waiting for clarity. You find it by moving, by chasing things that are bigger than your excuses, by doing the hard stuff on purpose. Challenge activates your potential. Think about athletes in the gym. If they stop increasing weight, their muscles plateau, they stop growing, their energy drops, but the moment they push a little harder, sweat a little more, go one rep further, everything wakes up. Same with your mind. It needs resistance to get stronger. It needs goals that scare you, risks that stretch you, people who challenge you, work that forces you to be better. But here's the twist. We avoid challenges because they're uncomfortable, because they threaten our current identity. We're afraid to fail, afraid to look stupid, afraid to break what we've already built. So we protect the status quo, not realizing that the status quo is what's draining the life out of us. You're not tired from working too hard. You're tired from playing too small. You're tired because deep down, you know you're capable of more and you're not doing it. When you're in alignment with your potential, energy flows. You get up with purpose. You show up with focus. You attack the day instead of dragging through it. But when you're out of alignment, when you're shrinking instead of expanding, that's when you feel heavy. That's when you feel numb. That's when even the smallest task feels overwhelming. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something that really challenged you, something that made your heart race, something that made you doubt yourself at first, but you did it anyway? If you can't remember, that's your answer. The solution isn't easy, but it's simple. You've got to manufacture your own challenge, create it, seek it, design a life that forces you to grow. That means setting goals that are just beyond your reach, having hard conversations you've been avoiding, saying yes to things that scare you, saying no to things that drain you, learning something new, moving your body, rebuilding your schedule to reflect your ambition, not your anxiety. When you challenge yourself, you unlock momentum. You shift from surviving to thriving. Your body responds, your mind sharpens, your spirit reignites, and suddenly you don't feel tired anymore. You feel alive. Purpose does that. Growth does that. The next time you say, I'm so tired, check yourself. Are you really exhausted or just unchallenged? Are you resting or are you shrinking? Because sometimes the most energizing thing you can do is not to rest, but to rise. Step up, push, struggle, break, rebuild. That's what wakes you up. And once you wake up, everything changes. Success is a daily choice. That's it. Not a lucky break, not some once-in-a-lifetime moment where everything magically aligns. It's a repeated, deliberate decision you make every single day, whether you feel like it or not. The people who rise, the ones who level up, aren't superhuman. They're not gifted with endless energy or born with laser focus. They simply choose again and again to show up. They choose to put in the work, to do the things most people skip, and to keep going even when nobody's clapping for them. We love to glamorize success. We picture the big moments, the promotion, the six-pack, the viral post, the dream house. But what we don't see are the boring, quiet, often painful choices behind the scenes. Waking up early when the bed is warm. Logging off social media when your brain craves distraction. Showing up to the gym when your body says just one more rest day. Saying no to the party because your goals need your attention. These moments, they're not glamorous, but they are everything. Most people are chasing some perfect system, some flawless routine that'll finally click and make it easy. They want the secret hack. But the truth, the most successful people have terrible days too. They feel lazy, they get tired, they doubt themselves, but they don't negotiate with their goals. They've made success a non-negotiable. It's not based on mood. It's based on commitment. You want to write a book? Then write a paragraph today. You want to lose 50 pounds? Start with 20 minutes of movement. You want to grow a business? Make one scary phone call. These daily actions, small, uncomfortable, and usually uncelebrated, are the bricks that build everything. And the crazy part, most people know what they need to do. They just don't do it, not because they're incapable, but because they haven't decided that the discomfort is worth it. That's the choice you have to make. Do you want the comfort of now or the results of later? When you choose success daily, you start stacking habits. You begin to trust yourself. You say, I did it yesterday, I can do it again. And over time, those small wins become your identity. You're not someone who tries to work out. You're someone who moves daily. You're not someone who wants to be a leader. You're someone who shows up and speaks up. That shift doesn't happen overnight. It's not a flip of a switch. It's a fire you build slowly, one log at a time. And here's something no one tells you. There's freedom in the routine. There's strength in the repetition. When you've chosen to commit to your goals every day, you stop overthinking everything. You stop questioning whether you should do the work. You just do it. Because success isn't based on your feelings. Feelings are temporary. Action is permanent. Of course, there will be days when you fall short. You'll slip, you'll skip, you'll fail. That's not weakness. That's being human. The key is not perfection, it's returning, getting back up, refocusing, recommitting. Because when you truly decide that success is a daily choice, you stop letting one bad day turn into a bad week. You stop letting your past define your pace, and you stop waiting for perfect conditions because you realize there's no such thing. Your time is limited, and every day you're making choices. Even not choosing is a choice. You're either building the life you want or settling into the one you're tolerating. And if you're stuck, if you feel like you're not moving, look at your choices. Are you deciding to grow or are you deciding to stay safe? That's what this comes down to, choosing the hard now over the easy never. So the next time you hear that voice saying, I'll start tomorrow, challenge it. Ask yourself, what does success look like today? Not next month, not 5 years from now, today. Then do that thing. It might not feel big, it might not feel heroic, but it matters because when you choose to act, you choose power, you choose progress. And over time, those daily decisions, they transform your entire life. Success isn't somewhere out there waiting for you to discover it. It's right here, right now, in the next action you take, in the next decision you make. Choose it today, and then again tomorrow, and again the day after that. That's how you level up, not in leaps, but in steps. Relentless, focused, daily steps. Most people stop at good enough. That's the brutal truth. They hit a point in their life where things are just fine. Maybe the job pays okay, their health is passable, relationships aren't on fire, and they settle. They confuse comfort with success. But comfort is the most dangerous place to be because it's where dreams go to die slowly, without noise, no explosion, no drama, just a quiet surrender to mediocrity. Let's break this down. Why do people stop at good enough? Because good enough is easy. It doesn't ask too much. It doesn't push back. It's not risky. When something is good enough, you can hide there. You can tell yourself you're doing better than most. You can look around and say, at least I'm not failing. And that becomes the standard. That becomes the ceiling you live under. And that's terrifying. The problem is the moment you accept good enough, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, you start dying in slow motion. Human beings are wired for progress. You feel most alive when you're stretching, when you're pushing, when you're doing something you didn't think you could do. But good enough steals that from you. It's a silent thief, and it doesn't rob you all at once. It chips away at your potential day by day, choice by choice, until one day you wake up and realize you've been living 10 steps below what you're capable of. There's another layer to this too. Most people are addicted to validation. If the world around them claps for what they're doing, they assume it's enough. They confuse external praise with internal potential. But here's the truth. Just because people are impressed doesn't mean you're operating at your highest level. In fact, the more people praise you, the more you should question whether you're aiming high enough, because most people praise what they understand, and true greatness, that scares them, it confuses them, it makes them uncomfortable. So if everyone around you is clapping, maybe you're still in the shallow end. It takes real courage to ask more of yourself when no one else is asking it of you. That's the mark of someone who's serious about leveling up. Not the person who needs a coach yelling at them or a crisis pushing them, but the person who looks in the mirror and says, this isn't it. I can do more, even when they could coast, because they understand that good enough is the enemy of greatness. This isn't about being greedy. This isn't about chasing some toxic idea of never being satisfied. It's about refusing to let your potential collect dust. It's about not making peace with the version of you that's playing small just because it's convenient. There is always another level, always. And the only thing keeping you from it is the belief that you've done enough. Let's say you're in decent shape. You work out a few times a week, eat pretty well. That's good. But is it great? Are you operating at the level where your body supports your energy, your confidence, your ability to lead, create, dominate your day? Or have you told yourself that being healthy enough is fine because it's better than being sick? That's the good enough trap. It shows up in every area: your health, your finances, your mindset, you stay in a job that pays the bills but doesn't challenge you. You stay in a routine that doesn't ignite you. You stay with habits that maintain rather than elevate. And here's the part no one likes to talk about. Most people will never push past good enough. They'll live their entire life in that zone because it's safer, because it doesn't require them to change, because it doesn't expose their weaknesses. You can be good enough without ever being truly vulnerable, without ever risking failure, without ever admitting that maybe you've been playing it safe all along. But you, if you're reading this, listening to this, thinking deeply about this, it means you know there's more. You feel it. You've always felt it. And that voice inside you, the one that whispers, you were made for more, it's not lying. It's not being dramatic. It's not being arrogant. That voice is your truth, and it's your job to honor it. So no, don't stop at good enough. Not in your work, not in your relationships, not in your health, not in your habits. Push further, stretch higher, dig deeper, because every time you accept good enough, you're building a wall between you and the life you could have lived. And trust me, that's a regret you don't want. Force yourself to level up, even when it's inconvenient, especially when it's uncomfortable, because greatness isn't found on the path of least resistance. It's found on the other side of just enough. So excuses are one of the most subtle yet destructive habits we develop. They feel harmless, even rational at times. They sneak into our daily thoughts like, I'm too tired today. I'll start on Monday. I'm just not ready yet. Or this isn't the right time. These aren't just thoughts. They're chains. They're lies you've told yourself so many times that you started to believe them. And the danger? Excuses are comfortable. They're warm, familiar, and they give you an instant out. But comfort never made anyone great. Let's get brutally honest for a second. Every time you make an excuse, you're handing over your power. You're saying, I'm not in control, my circumstances are. And that's a dangerous mindset, because the moment you start believing that the external world dictates your potential, your progress, or your future, you've already lost the game. The truth is, no situation, no lack of resources, no past failure has the right to control your next step, unless you give it permission. The reason excuses are so addictive is because they feel good in the moment. They give you relief. You don't have to face discomfort. You don't have to challenge yourself. You don't have to risk failing. But that short-term relief costs you long-term fulfillment. It's like eating junk food. Feels good for 5 minutes, makes you feel worse the rest of the day. Excuses are the junk food of your mental life. They taste good now, but slowly poison your potential. And here's something a lot of people don't talk about. Excuses become identity. You repeat them enough times, and they don't just stay in your head. They become who you think you are. You say, I'm just not a morning person. And suddenly, waking up early isn't even on the table. You say, I've never been good with money and managing finances becomes a lost cause. You say, I'm not a leader, and you never step up when the opportunity arises. That's not fate, that's self-sabotage disguised as personality. And you're better than that. If you want to level up, the first thing you have to do is become hyper aware of the excuses you make. Call them out brutally, honestly. Catch yourself in the act. When your mind says, I'll do it tomorrow, don't just nod and agree. Stop. Ask yourself, why not today? What's really stopping me? Is this truth or is this fear in disguise? You've got to become a detective in your own life. Investigate every limitation you've accepted and trace it back to its root. Most of the time, it's fear. Fear of failing, fear of looking stupid, fear of hard work. And if fear is running the show, your results will always be small. You don't overcome excuses by pretending they don't exist. You overcome them by replacing them with decisions. That's the power you hold. A decision made with clarity and action is a weapon against every excuse your mind can offer. When you decide, no matter how I feel, I'm doing it, something shifts. You step into ownership. You take the wheel back. You stop living reactively and start living intentionally. Excuses also love company. Pay attention to the people around you. If your circle is full of excuse makers, guess what you're going to normalize? Mediocrity. You'll start to see average as acceptable. You'll start lowering your standards without even realizing it. That's why you need to protect your energy. Surround yourself with people who challenge you, who call you out, who don't let you off the hook when you try to slip. Growth thrives in accountability. But here's the truth that should wake you up. Your excuses don't just affect you, they affect everyone around you. Every time you shrink back from your potential, you rob your family, your friends, your future self of the best version of you. That might sound dramatic, but it's real. You were not born to coast. You were born with the capacity to build, to lead, to inspire, and you can't do any of that if you're constantly hiding behind the walls you built yourself. No one's coming to knock those walls down for you. You built them, you tear them down, brick by brick, day by day. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's messy, but it's also liberating. Because on the other side of your excuses is your actual life. The one you want, the one you dream about, the one you were built for. But you'll never see it if you keep choosing comfort over courage. So next time an excuse pops into your mind, don't negotiate with it. Don't entertain it. Recognize it for what it is. Fear dressed up as logic. And then move anyway. Take the step. Do the hard thing. Prove to yourself that you are not a slave to your thoughts. You are in control. And the more you do that, the weaker your excuses become and the stronger you get. It's not about being perfect. It's about choosing power over pity, progress over paralysis, and action over avoidance every single day. That's how you level up. Not by waiting, not by wishing, but by refusing to let your excuses define your limits. The biggest myth holding people back from greatness is this idea that you have to be ready before you begin. That readiness is some magical moment where the stars align, your confidence is high, the timing is perfect, and you suddenly feel unstoppable. Let's get real. That moment doesn't exist. That feeling, it's a lie. Waiting to be ready is just fear dressed up in procrastination's clothing. You don't become ready by thinking about it. You don't become ready by planning the perfect moment. You become ready by starting when it's messy, when it's uncertain, when it's uncomfortable. Action creates clarity, action builds confidence, and yet most people are stuck in their heads trying to figure it all out before they ever take one step forward. Here's the truth. Every successful person you admire started before they felt ready. They launched the podcast before they had the perfect mic. They posted the video before they knew if anyone would watch. They started the business with doubt in their chest and fire in their belly. Why? Because the only way to grow into the version of yourself that can do the thing, you don't become a speaker by waiting to feel like a speaker. You speak. You don't become a leader by reading books about leadership for 5 years. You lead. You don't become confident by hoping you'll wake up confident tomorrow. You show up scared today, and confidence shows up later as a reward. That first step is always ugly, always awkward, always uncertain. That's how it's supposed to feel. You'll overthink. You'll second guess yourself. You'll feel like a fraud. But none of those feelings disqualify you. In fact, they confirm you're doing something that matters. If you weren't stepping outside your comfort zone, you wouldn't feel fear. Fear only shows up when you're stepping into potential. And let's talk about this lie we tell ourselves, I'll start when I have more time. No, you won't. You're already not using the time you have. Starting has nothing to do with time. It has everything to do with choice. If it matters, you make time. You find 10 minutes. You wake up earlier. You cut out the distractions. You move it to the top of your list, not the bottom. Another excuse? I need more information. No, you don't. You're drowning in information. You've read the books, watched the videos, saved the quotes. What you need is execution. What you need is movement. People don't fail from lack of knowledge. They fail from lack of courage. They know what to do. They just don't do it. And here's the most powerful truth. Action is the antidote to fear. It always is. You don't wait to feel fearless. You move with the fear. You take it along for the ride. Fear hates movement. The moment you act, the fear shrinks. The hesitation dissolves. And suddenly, what felt impossible starts to feel manageable. You want to write a book? Start with one messy page. You want to change careers? Send one bold email. You want to change your body? Get up and take that first walk. You want to build confidence? Speak up once. That's how it works.